You are listening to Arts on the Air, a bi-weekly-ish interview show dedicated to Savannah, Georgia's artists, musicians, and authors. Each episode will feature a guest in conversation about their philosophy, practice, and current projects, as well as their thoughts on the state of the arts in our community of Savannah. Our theme music is a clip of Summer Nights by the Eric Jones Trio. It's provided by our friend Mark Chesanow, who plays with the Eric Jones Trio. Hey guys, welcome to Arts on the Air. This is Tamara Garvey, and I'm with Rob Hessler.
That's me.
Welcome, Rob.
Glad to be here.
This is my 2-year anniversary show of having taken the show over from Rob. So we're doing a special thing. We're having a conversation, and David Laughlin still should be arriving.
Yeah, he's going to be late because that's David for you.
We're going to have a 3-way conversation about the show and about interviewing and about our lives.
Yeah, I mean, first off, congratulations on 2 years. I mean, people might not know this out there because I'm sure you haven't talked about this on the radio show, but when David and I... So David left before I did, and I kept the show going for a while. And there was basically... I needed to end the show. It was just time. I had been doing it for a while.
You did it for 5 years, I think is what you wrote to me.
Yeah, basically 5 years. And so it was time to move on. And there was one person that I was going to ask to see who might take it over. One person who I thought it would be good. And that was you. That was you. And I was so happy that you said you would do the show because you had co-hosted with me a couple of times.
Yes. I've been a guest a couple of times, and then I think once I co-hosted too. And
I'm so proud of you. I'm so glad that you've been doing it. It's so great.
Well, I was very flattered when you asked me because I think the way you phrased it, you were like, it's no problem if you don't want to do it. I will just let the show ride off in the sunset because there's nobody else that I thought I'd to turn to. And I was very flattered and overwhelmed, but I thought, well, that's a really nice thing. I have to try, you know.
Well, trying. You've been trying for 2 years now.
I have been attempting it for 2 years.
All right, so you've been doing it for 2 years. How's that been feeling?
It's okay. So when I first started, the first thing I did was to sort of like open it up from fine artists to also musicians and authors. And
you changed the name of the show. We should tell people that. So it used to be Art on the Air, and now it's Arts on the Air.
Yeah, but it's kind of a parenthesis with the S.
Yeah. I love it. It actually looks really good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's a funny thing because I guess the branding doesn't really carry across all platforms because obviously the links for it everywhere is still just a singular Art on the Air. So it's just a little, just a fun, quirky thing for people. But also another thing, maybe I was 6 months into it and I was like, how did Rob do this every single week? And I bumped it down to doing it twice a month. I don't know how you kept that up. That was an incredible pace you set for yourself.
Obsession, basically. Like fear of failure. I don't know.
Hi, just a little time out. This is Tamara. Right now the audio gets a little weird for a second because David Laughlin actually called us to see where we were. But Rob is just about to talk about Savannah Morning News and doing the podcast and writing for them.
News. And I was doing, so they were paying me every week to give them a podcast and write a little blurb about it.
Can they pay me for the podcast then?
Well, now I just turned it into just writing. I mean, so...
What if they pay you to write and they pay me to do a podcast?
Oh, I would love that. They should do that.
I like this being on the
hold your
air
breath,
also.
though. Yeah, I wouldn't hold your breath. But yeah, I mean, that helped because I had an expectation to turn in something every week to the paper, and I was getting money. So, money is a great motivator to keep working.
It's a great motivator. I think, hasn't it been described as the ultimate motivator?
Pretty much. I mean, so it's funny that you say that. My dad, he used to always say, time is more important than money. So find something which gives you enough money to survive, but is much the time to really live your life. Because you're probably not going to get to live your dream. Now, you actually work as an artist. So, you're kind of doing that. I actually feel like, for me, writing is also my dream. So I'm not really...
I love that. It's kind of fun. What if this has ended up where, it's just... The projects have been split, and you do the writing side of it, and I do the podcasting side of it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I'll write about your guests every week.
You just transcribe.
I'll just transcribe it and I'll write a little article.
It's actually been why are we duplicating the effort? But we might as well, right?
Yeah. This August marks 5 years since the first article I guess I wrote, the first podcast with an article. It was about I think it was called Every Third Thursday. It was the photographers meetup that was happening at Sulphur Studios. Yeah. It was Emily Earle and Bridget Kahn's husband.
Okay.
You know, maybe who I'm talking about? So, okay, Bridget Kahn was a local photographer. Ken was also a photographer and like brewer of alcoholic beverages. I don't know. He was he worked as at a brewery. They just left. They just moved out of Savannah. Oh. But that was the first article I wrote with Emily and Ken. They both came on the show to talk about this, like the photography thing. Yeah. And that was 5 years ago. I think it was like August 11th or something.
So you're going to have an anniversary show soon, too. You'll have a 5-year anniversary.
Yeah, but nobody gives a shit about that. So, like, I don't write an article about, like, look at me. This is my 5 years at Savannah Morning News.
Hey, you guys. David Laughlin has arrived.
Hi.
This is so perfect.
Yes, it does fit.
Congrats on arriving.
I showed up.
Yeah.
That's okay. I can leave now.
So we're having a freewheeling 3-way talk about.
So we were just talking about, sort of the history of the show, and it's been 5 years since the first time I wrote something.
You've been writing
stories
since school.
I know, but about the podcast or the radio show.
Oh, I see.
Do you remember why? I started writing that. Do you remember at all? Do you remember that story?
No.
Okay, so here's what happened, and this is the first time this is being on the radio, but I've shared this before. The Savannah Morning News, I was subscribing to the Savannah Morning News, and they every week I'd do Savannah and like check out and see like what's the art stuff, and David and I would look at Connect Savannah and Do Savannah for like the events.
Is this like Chris was writing, right? Chris Monroe?
Yeah, so Chris was writing, and he was writing for the Sunday paper, and he was doing a great job for the Sunday paper.
Oh, yeah.
But the Thursday Do Savannah so we had this 1 month, it was like a month of May or it was, I forget what it was exactly. It was this month where...
It was spring.
It was in the spring, and David and I had all these incredible guests. It was one of those months where it was a great month.
Fantastic.
And it was like a first Friday where there was all these great shows opening. And that entire month, Do Savannah didn't write about a single one of the shows. And so I blasted them on social media.
You're like, this is egregious.
Yes. Yeah. I was like, David and I have been doing this crap for free. And the Savannah Morning News can't even...
How dare you? Why?
And so to their credit, Joshua Peacock, who was the editor of Do Savannah at that time, messaged me. And he said, you know what, you're right. We have not been doing enough art coverage. Let's meet and we'll talk about it.
Why not?
And that's when he hired me to put the podcast and write about it. And
You've been doing a great job.
Thanks, man. I feel like I have been doing a good job.
You've been getting better.
I have. That's true, though.
No, it's
I know that's a little bit of a backhanded compliment.
No, you have to get better as you go along.
There's no way you don't get better if you practice it.
People always get better. Are you going to get worse at your job over time? That'd be wild.
Then you're out of there.
So you publicly insulted your way into a job.
Yeah, so I would recommend for anybody who wants a job, insult the company.
To go storm in and demand
the
job. They make changes, and I'm the guy to do it.
Right. Yeah, this is a real edge case that worked out.
That's actually that actually works out pretty well. I've heard that work for a few people.
I'm surprised, but
And then how often would you write? Would it be
every week?
Okay.
Every damn week.
Yeah, and at that time the turnaround was really fast because we did the show on Wednesday and I had to turn it in by Friday. So we would do the show and then I have to transcribe our shit show of a podcast that we would put together.
Yeah.
The culmination of everything that comes together and take out all the crap. That alone is a task.
It was just 2 paragraphs.
So and of course I have to edit it. You know what I mean?
The show.
Because I have to, because since it was on the Savannah Morning News site instead of WRUU, I had to pull out all that extra stuff.
Oh, yeah, the PSAs and things like that. So we were just talking because he was saying that it was easier for him to keep up with the pace of weekly, that he was getting paid for it, and I was like, is there a way that I can get paid for this? And now we're talking about,
no.
What if you just transcribe? Yeah.
I mean, I think it would be great if the Savannah Morning News did have a podcast that was
They
related
should
to...
add your podcast on.
So the previous editor over there, my previous editor, Zach Dennis, did a lot of that kind of stuff. But they're really short-staffed over there right now, so I don't know if that's happening. In fact, I went on his podcast a couple times for the Savannah Morning News after doing the radio show to talk about art things. Like, like articles I wrote or whatever. And so...
Things coming up. And people.
Stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I think it would be great, but I don't know if that's in their plans right now.
It should be, because unfortunately just the way of the world is that a lot of the print media that's why they're short-staffed. A lot of the print media is drawn back.
Well, they mail the Savannah Morning News now. They don't deliver it. It comes in the mail.
I used to get that delivered. I feel bad for letting.
So you're part of the reason why.
I know. I feel bad for letting them down.
You are literally to blame for the failure of newspapers in America.
Yes, all of that. Well, I take that blame as well as others. So
that's just because it's cheaper for them to mail it out than to pay delivery people to do it.
I think that that's part of it. There's also, they moved the printers are now they print it in Florida.
I was going to say, what's interesting is that now they have to have that. That's not the daily news then.
Well, so it is. There's an online publication that it comes out every day,
sure.
And you can go to literally a PDF of the physical paper, and it looks like the paper.
Okay.
So I mean, just like what you would see, like that gets delivered. So.
But the one that comes to your door it comes in the mail
later in the afternoon. That's what I mean. So it should be really the Savannah Afternoon News now.
Well, there's that, but it's also, it has to be printed in Florida and sent up from there and all this. That's like 2 days late. I hate to say it, but...
Yeah, it's generally
just the
not...
practicality of it is...
Yeah, the stuff is more like... You're right. It's not as much of this happened last night.
Yeah.
Here's
not breaking news.
Yeah, it's not breaking news, but it can be important. Like there was a story recently that one of the reporters wrote, and I'm just it's morning, so I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he wrote a story about the water usage that the new Hyundai plant is taking that they're doing, and how there was some deception there, and it was a really big deal. Yeah. That was kind of like an investigative news piece. That's where the newspaper can thrive, because
it's a long form.
Yeah,
it was like a muckraking article.
Yes, exactly.
Instead of just who got in a car wreck the night before.
Right. So that stuff, you're right, is pretty much
this has to be just gone into anyway, because that does take investigation and a little. I don't know what the word is, but nobody will talk. The executives will not talk about it, so you really have to find out without them, which takes time.
Yeah, well, fortunately, the people in the city government and stuff over there, and on the officials over there, were very willing to talk about their displeasure about the Hyundai plant stealing the water. So
True.
So Tamara, how has Arts on the Air changed your life?
Changed my life.
2 years.
Let's see. Well, I love that I keep a balance of talking to people who I already know a little bit, and then are just learning more about them from their work side. And then sometimes people, it's just complete strangers, right? They were just come across online on Instagram and reach out to, or maybe someone who's been floating around out there and I've always been interested in, and I get to interview them. So honestly, everybody who I speak to, there's something interesting that they say. I love, I kind of like hearing the through lines through all the different people that just everybody tends to be introverted, honestly. So I feel like it's easy. It feels easy to connect with people that way, on that level, that we all kind of have similar struggles, and that everybody has this struggle of they're starting a piece, whether it's music or art or book, and you go through waves of feeling good about it and feeling embarrassed about it, and then there's a point where you have to put it out in public, and then there's waves of promoting it versus feeling awkward about that, and just that every creative person has these same emotional ups and downs through it. I think that's been kind of cool to learn about.
So one thing I thought was interesting when I was doing the show, and I don't know if you've experienced this as well, David, but it was there was a kind of a double-edged sword in talking to these people, in that and getting to know about their work. On the one hand, it was like you said, there was kind of this discovery, and you see like, wow, this person is so they're like they're just like me, and like they have all these same feelings and vibes. And then there was this other part is like, man, I'm not shit. Look at all these great people out there. They're doing these amazing things, and like I'm a fuck up kind of.
But
you know what I mean?
always and plus
we can cuss. By the way,
I was going to say, wow, this has changed. Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. It's like sometimes the illusion is better of where they come up with their ideas and their thoughts, and it gives you a little more. And a lot of them don't want to tell you either, which is fine. But it's just the discovery of who they are, and like you said, Tim, a lot of them are introverts. I know. And to get them in a one-to-one setting, they're a little more open and a little more freer than they don't think about it being broadcast out to the tens of people.
That joke never gets old.
No, because it's true.
But that's one of the beautiful things about it is that we can speak their minds and about where they're coming from.
Just
their inspiration.
Because also, like, sometimes when you do a show, you like whether the gallery person or the event person is requiring an interview or you just are doing it, that there's some component of like an artist talk. And I've had this too, where I had to get up in front of people and give a little spiel, and then there was a Q&A, and it was agony. So I feel like this is a way for people who it's more natural for them to just speak to somebody one-on-one. This is a much easier way, I feel like, for artists to talk about themselves.
A quiet little area where you can just have a chat.
Yeah. And then eventually more people can learn about it. But just standing up in front of a group of people is hard for most adults, and I think especially for artist types. And Rob, I was thinking what you said earlier, where you said that after speaking to so many people who are in different like stages of their career, that you started to feel kind of imposter syndrome about your own art. But one thing that I always think about with this show is like doing the show itself. I think of it as an art form.
Sure.
So,
yeah, definitely.
This where it's like there's the pre-stage where I do research and I come up with questions, and then you sit down and talk to them, and then as you're doing the interview, I try really hard, and I have no journalistic training, but I have tried really hard to do it where it's a mix of like things I've already prepared to ask them, and then as the conversation goes along, where you come up with a new question and like delve into a new direction more fully. And then there's like a small amount that maybe I want to put in about myself, because I think it's nice to have like the interviewer and the interviewee are in the same field, and so you actually can connect with them and talk about that. But that is like a little bit of that goes a long way. So there's a fine balance of that too. It's like a little spice, and then you like do the editing, and then you're putting it out there with the content that you write about the show, and it's like all aspects of it where you're creating it. So it actually is like a little art project every episode. I think about it like that.
A lot of times you have to pick different places to do the interview.
Yeah.
And where was the weirdest?
I will say also, for the beginning, for a really long time, I was having to just pick random different coffee shops to do it in, and I would try to come up with like for specific days or times of days where it would be a quiet-ish place, and there were a few that would be quiet-ish, and then
other days, not so much.
Sometimes, if people have their own art studio, then I'm happy to like go to them. And
that's the ideal, because they're in their own environment, and they can feel comfortable.
And honestly, for a long time, I wasn't having people come over to my house because I had a dog, and he was a hound dog, and he would just howl at inopportune moments, and I couldn't trust him. And then unfortunately, my dog has passed away a little bit ago. So honestly, in the past few interviews I've done, it did make it easier where I could just like ask somebody to come over and we just sit right here, because now I can have people in my house and there's not going to be a random dog howl every so often.
I think the random dog is kind of a nice touch, but that's me. I don't know.
Yeah, but see, you were always, when we did the show,
oh God,
you were always the wacky guy, and I was the straight guy. That was how we played it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it worked out well for us.
We didn't play at anything.
No, I mean, that's how we did it.
That was just how we did it.
No, but I mean, I do think we kind of fell into those roles, and we like bought into it, because I think at first we were both trying to figure
out what we're doing.
Yes, and then eventually we hit our stride. I thought we did a good job. I mean, I loved it. I look back on those shows very fondly. I
absolutely enjoyed every time. I mean, almost every time.
Almost is fair.
Yes.
So who didn't you like interviewing, David?
Well, actually, I'll tell you one of my favorite places that I did it, and it was without you.
Was it one of the field notes?
It was a field note, and it was in one of the squares. It was not a popular square, but one of the guys was set up, and he was painting in the square. So I just decided, hey, I've been wanting to talk to you for a while. Why don't we do it now? And we just set up, and like the UPS trucks are going by, and dogs are, everything's going on around. And we just remark on that while we're doing the interview, and it's sort of like just a slice of life.
It's Savannah, the one I did recently, as we were sitting here, the train went by and we had to pause for a minute, and I was like, oh, okay, so I live in, everybody else who lives in Starland, you'll know the sound of this train coming through.
Yeah, now you know I live by the train tracks.
Well, that's really interesting. I love that you said that, you brought that up, because I used to like to take my recorder out to like First Friday and stuff, and I would randomly grab people. You were out on the spot. You were like a TV newscaster. Yeah, I'd be like, hey, look, I do the radio show, and like, do you want to talk?
Yeah,
and
right now.
Yeah, literally right now. and like, I get
that's
5 minutes.
Sometimes that's fun. So
I remember I did a. Do you remember the artist Sarah Bell? Any of you remember?
I believe
Sarah
so.
Bell? She did some really interesting. She has like repeating characters. A lot of times they're like old timey muscle men and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I remember I liked her. And I ran into her literally on the street on a First Friday, and I did an interview in front of. Remember the old drawing? It was the drawing room. It's not there anymore. Yeah. Or maybe it is. I don't know. But there was the studios, and there was a little gallery over there. I think Greg Eltringham had put together, and I just saw her on the street, and I was like, oh my God, I've been loving what I've been seeing you post up on social media. You want to just talk about it? Yeah. And like, I just grabbed her and literally just did an interview on the street.
Let's do it right now.
Yeah. And it was great. I mean,
sometimes that really works out well.
I remember when you guys did the show, and it would be at the radio station, so it would be live. And you had like pre-recorded these little notes that you'd stick in randomly through there. So then it was interesting where like the full interview, the one at the station, was like fitting around that. Like the time of that just happened to be fitting around. And when I first took the show over, I tried doing kind of the same thing where I would go out and pre-record little 5 or 7 minute interviews to like sprinkle into the others. But it became hard because I wasn't doing a live show. Like all of it was pre-recorded, even the main interview. So then you'd have to like make the main interview about the right length of time to fit in around the little blips, and that was kind of hard. Because when I first started, it was on the radio, and it had to, so just for background, like it had to be exactly an hour. You have to edit it to be exactly an hour.
Literally. To the second.
So, and now that it's just a podcast, now that wouldn't be a problem.
Now we can just go on.
Well, not only that, but now you can talk to more than just graphic artists. You're talking to musicians and writers. Which is what I wanted it to be in the first place, but...
You wanted to be a writer? Or?
No, I mean, that's how I wanted the show to be. But the radio station put their thumb down, and they're oppressive.
They pushed us down deep into the ground and said no.
Who knows
just graphics.
Community radio would be such the man about it.
No, that's all right. But that's why I was so glad when you took and started doing everybody else.
And apparently you got into trouble for that.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
Well, I talked my way out of it.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
There were some others that we don't have to get into that. You can edit this out if you want.
But that's part of what... But I mean, that's part of what Savannah was about, is there's so many creatives.
That was my argument.
Right. That was my argument. I don't know why they believed you and not me. But,
well, I mean, look at you.
True. That's fair.
So, David, I know that this Art on the Air radio show really propelled you into superstardom. So, in all seriousness, though, I mean, you are kind of an introvert. Even though you
kind of?
Yeah, but I mean, it got you to meet all these people and get out there and stuff.
That's the reason I wanted to do the show was instead of going out and meeting people, they could come to a little room and meet me.
Uh-huh.
You know, and we'd just talk for an hour. I'd get to know them and get to know about them if I was interested. And, that was the whole point of doing it.
Do you still have relationships with people that you met through that show?
Oh, sure. That helped me get out. That helped me meet people, and once get to know me, then they all know to avoid me. That's okay.
No. Your beard is glorious.
But at least
nobody can see this, but
at least I was able to, once I feel a little more comfortable, then now I can feel a little better going out and meeting people. I mean, I'm still, like I said, this town is full of so many creatives and so many interesting people that...
Was there anybody, I'm curious, do either of you have any requests? People you still want to hear from that you never got to interview? That
Shel Silverstein, but
that's probably never going to happen.
No, that's
not going to happen. Is there anybody who
Johnny Mercer?
One of the things that David and I, we had this philosophy from the very beginning, and I've stuck with it even with my writing too, is that like, yeah, we were going to interview people who were having big time shows at like museums and stuff, but we were also like, we just followed our muse. Like whatever we thought was cool, like if somebody was having their very first show at a coffee shop, we didn't care. We were like, if we liked it, we would talk to them, and we would have them on the show.
Sometimes even if they've never really had many shows.
Yeah.
Just
I mean, like we had Suzanne
work.
Jackson and Jerome Meadows and obviously Jose Ray has become a big name now, and we had big people who everybody knows, but we also had people that nobody knew, and like it was fun. Like we always kind of just
it was like the guy in the square I was telling you about. I can't remember his name right now, unfortunately, but he's not even in town anymore. But he was really good. But I just loved the work, and I wanted to know what his thought process were and his history in getting to that point where he could do such great work, and not just the talent.
Do you remember what his name was?
No,
I know. It's not terrible.
I'm terrible with names. I think graphically, but that was the point, was to learn about not just whether you're high in society or in the field or anything, but just the creative, whatever the word is.
And someone who's
you get there.
like working out in plein air in a square is unusual too. So there's like technical aspects about that
True.
I'm kind of curious about. I always am interested in things like that.
One thing I really liked too was picking out an artist. Like we would have an artist on whose maybe their work wasn't great yet, but maybe we could like see something there.
Right.
Like you would, because it felt to me like by having the podcast, like it doesn't, I mean, okay, we're joking about like tens of people listen to it, but really there's been thousands of downloads now. I mean, like, so people do listen to this, and it felt like, here's an opportunity for this person. We're kind of giving them a little bit of a boost.
Sure.
That
was another point of doing it.
Yeah, like it was like you could say, hey, we think you're doing something that's worth talking about.
Yeah.
Like, and artists, we're in these little holes, and like you don't know, like you can just... we talked about the imposter syndrome, like sometimes these young artists, like they need a little boost.
Right.
And they might turn out to be, just like you said, there's good artists and there's bad ones. There's some that are much better than I and you and all of us.
Well, not the three of us, but
well,
other than us.
Not collectively.
Rob is ironically wearing a shirt that just says bad art.
I just covered the Bad Art show,
nice.
Which was an amazing show.
Another show I missed.
Oh, sorry, go on.
No, that was okay.
I was just gonna say I don't always get like feedback from people that they're watching it, and then randomly I do, and it's such a nice surprise. Like there's been quite a few people who... Sharon Norwood is the one I remember most recently, where I reached out to her to ask to interview her, and she was like, "Oh, yours is one of the podcasts that I just listen to in my studio as I'm working." And I was like, "Amazing! I love hearing that."
Heck
but
yeah.
I don't always like get that feedback, but people are out there just listening as they drive around, and some people are like, "Yeah, I save them up, and then I'll have a big drive and I'll listen to a few of them," and it's so nice.
That was always cool. I love that because you feel like you're just kind of in this like bubble, and like who knows, is anybody really listening? But we do get the podcast number, so you can see that people are listening to the show.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is really cool.
It's interesting when you said before that you that a lot of your shows, it sounded like centered around an event coming up, and I think that you might have been more organized than me administratively, because I am really not looking ahead at like what's coming up and interviewing specific people for it, and I kind of have like overtly tried to not be doing a show or a person about like to promote a specific event coming up, just because I feel like then I'd open myself up to people like pitching to me,
right,
and like coming at me and being like, "Hey, I have a thing coming up, can you interview me for that?" And then just by numbers wise, I wouldn't be able to take everybody. And so some people I'd be having to say no to and pick others, and they'd be disappointed. And I would like hate the idea that this thing I'm doing is this fun, enriching hobby would become this source of like stress or strife or whatever.
For sure.
So I'm like overtly, I just reach out to just random people and I say, this is just like a slice of life in your work right now. It's not to promote any, if you have something coming up, that's great. But I only reached out to you because I just want to hear about what you're doing lately and what you did in the past and how it brought you to this.
Yeah, I mean, actually, David, I feel like you were really a big proponent of that. Like, you would bring the Connect every week.
Oh, yeah.
And we would go through, because we had a segment where it was current events. Like, we would talk about, like, what is happening. That was part of our show.
I also tried doing it at the beginning of the show. I would do at the end, record a little current event. Like, it was a lot of work, and I just couldn't keep it up. Basically, I feel like this whole interview is me telling you all these things I tried to do that you were doing,
okay.
and then,
Well, that's
I literally
We gave you
I couldn't keep it up.
you were given no advice.
Well, you should do the show that's best for you.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, and that's what it's always been, is, I mean, David and I, we had our personality on the show. Then when David left, it changed a little bit, you know, for the
Excuse me. Go ahead.
But yeah, your current event. Sorry, I interrupted you. But your current event, the upcoming event segment was great. But yeah, that was another step of work you had to do, of like looking up the event and writing it down and then recording. Like you were, you did a lot.
When we started, I even had history art notes, things in history that day. Just there was too much.
We had
all these
birthdays.
things, like,
we had birthdays.
Right. Oh, that's
incredible.
Artist birthdays.
I'm gonna shout out. My birthday was Saturday.
Happy birthday,
Thank you.
Tamara.
Okay.
Very good.
Yeah, so if I were getting paid for this, then all these extra things would be amazing. We could do all that too.
So
you guys are getting what you
wait,
pay for, which is free.
Does this mean you're cancer?
Yes,
That explains so much.
it does. I'm a sensitive little baby.
Oh, is that what that means?
It is.
Really?
So
Okay.
you asked us, like, you know, about somebody that we wish we would have interviewed. I can't think of anybody right off the bat. I mean, obviously, I've still been interviewing like all kinds of people all the time.
Right.
Yeah,
There's
is there
so
any-
many.
Is there anybody, like, I mean, I know, I hate to say, like, choose a favorite. I mean, you obviously love the people
Yeah, it's
you're
really
talking
hard.
to. But has there been, like, somebody that you, like, interviewed and you're just like, wow, that was so amazing. Like, it really...
I can think of one that was amazing, but not in a good way.
I
But I don't know
I've
if
heard
I
this
should.
story.
I
of
don't
Let's
yours.
not call
Yeah.
anybody out.
Should I tell
Let's
any-
not punch down.
Come on.
I mean,
Okay,
it's
I
your
won't.
choice. You can say whatever
Do you
want
want to
but-
No, I
tell
won't.
the story of it without the name or?
No,
Okay.
probably not. But
Maybe
it
it's
was.
not
But when you're going on radio, kids,
You got to talk.
you gotta talk.
Yeah, you got
Yeah.
to talk. I know who you're talking about right now.
Right.
too.
It's still my favorite.
I think maybe a lot of the people that really stand out to me are ones where they had like a really huge concept behind their work that was really meaningful to them, and or there was some kind of community engagement aspect that was really big. So like a recent one who David and I both interviewed was Autumn Gary.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that I felt like really stood out because I'd only met her face to face once before. We never really hung
I
out.
could
And
have
then,
talked a lot.
yeah, and then a lot of her
more
work
with
was
her.
around doing sculpture at the, it was like the Savannah Center for Blindness. And these sculptures that are in this part of like this garden that they've made for people to like learn how to navigate city sidewalks, learn how to navigate walking around, which is just such a cool.
Amazing.
I didn't know about that thing about the center, but yeah, talking to her. And then she had a whole aspect about her Native American heritage and her delving into that. And so that one really stood out for me too.
That's a great show. Yeah, she's cool. She's really cool. I think I might have written about her or interviewed her at one point, but I think she actually did a podcast about artists, like when she first came to Savannah.
Oh.
I don't know if it lasted or whatever, but I like her work and she's good. You know, for me, it was
Really good energy there.
Yeah, there was a couple of things that happened. Probably my favorite interview I ever did was Suzanne Jackson.
Yeah.
Because that was an interesting one because the Telfair Museum's Rachel Reese reached out to me specifically and was like, would you like to interview Suzanne? You can come before the show opens and you can tour the show and talk to her. And
that
I
was her like lifetime retrospective.
it was the
show.
retrospective. So like
Yeah.
I got to go in there and talk to her, and she was such a lovely person, but it was also, it felt like, wow, people actually give a shit about this podcast that we're doing. Like it felt like a
it
real
had
moment.
validity.
Yeah, like they want me to come and do this thing. Like
the
they
museum
specifically
asked you.
reached out to
That
me.
is
And I had a
cool.
relationship with Rachel Reese already because we had her on the show. And so it was just like, that was a really cool moment. So I went in there, like the museum was closed, and walked through the space. And that was like...
I would have felt like such a professional journalist.
I did feel professional. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah. I want like a little button that says press, like in the old time where someone comes out with like the camera with a big flash and they're in a group of people.
There you go. Well, you should just make it.
I'm on like old timey press credentials.
You're a maker. Make it. You just walk around.
You've been doing a lot better. You know what was fun was talking to, frankly, the Maxines.
Oh, yeah. That was great.
Because that was 4 ladies. And what would you call it? Punk rock?
They were
punk
grunge. Every year they win so many things in the Connect. And also, I will say, interviewing the musicians is cool because interspersed amongst the talking, I do get to drop in little clips of their songs. And obviously, like interviewing either an author or an artist, I have to be like, okay, guys, look at the Facebook page. I've posted images of this. But and I wish I would have more musician shows. But in those, I really like that there are like can be just dropped into the interview so that people understand what we're talking about.
I became a huge fan because of that.
They were so cool. And it's fun. Actually, you asked earlier about like a location that was the worst. Honestly, that might have been the hardest because we were outside and we're in this...
Oh, that's right.
We were in like
I forgot about
we were
that.
outside of a cafe and we were on MLK and there was a lot of traffic noise.
There was traffic behind too as well.
There was
some of the people decided to come in and ignore that there was
easygoing traffic like around a square, but it was like serious traffic.
I should have set up the plexiglass around us.
But ironically, it's funny because they're like they're like a punk band and they're kind of loud, and so it honestly was a little bit like meta that just the background of the interview is also this like industrial loudness. That's how I try to think of it.
Well, it sort of fit, but then again, it was annoying. That part of it.
But they were fun.
But it was a good interview.
2 things. Well, first off, though, that speaks to you mentioning about the artists that you speak to that have a really interesting concept, because you don't need to look at the artwork to have an interesting conversation or for the conversation to be interesting. But remember when you interviewed the tattoo artist and there was a car crash while you were interviewing
I forgot about that.
Well, that was who's that guy? He's a great.
That was at. Oh, I can see the black tattoo.
Yeah. And that guy is
And he's still.
Oh, he's a great artist too.
Yes,
he's
a
visual artist. What is his name? Pray for SAV.
Oh yeah.
That image. It's.
David, do you have your phone? Why don't you Google real quick?
What is the name of that guy?
Because
he's a cool.
My one tattoo I have was by someone at Black Orchid.
That that was a good interview, and that was a weird moment.
Are you sure you don't want to hear? I have on my phone here koala sounds. You don't want to hear that instead?
Let's hear some koala sounds.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so koala sounds are coming up here, but yeah, I mean, I think that's, those are the things that happen though. Like when you're doing, is this koala sounds?
Oh wait, no, that was my date last night. Wait.
Oh God, let's move on. That's disgusting. That's just disgusting.
I'm sorry.
That is more high pitched than I would have imagined.
I'm sure you're not surprised that I would have koala sounds ready to go.
That's too funny.
Let me see if I can find this.
Yeah, I like that you've expanded it to music and stuff like that too. In fact, through the podcast, I did learn about the Maxines, and I started following them on Facebook, and now I'm interested in them, Well,
honestly, and you'd been doing that when you handed it off to me. You've been doing it for 5 years, so you had talked to a lot of artists. I mean, granted, there are always more people coming here and more people graduating, but there's so many creative people in Savannah. It's amazing. So I love being able to talk to everybody. I wish I could get more musicians.
Oh, easy.
And maybe the musicians tend to be like the most flaky contingent of people, the hardest to pin down. So that might be a little background info on why there's fewer musicians.
That's peeling the onion there. You mentioned that there's so many. We had interviewed so many, but that's what's so cool though. And it's like I didn't know about the Maxines before you had them on the show, and it's so crazy. Isn't it amazing how many awesome people you discover? Like it's like we discover them, quote unquote, but they've been doing stuff for 5 years and somehow like you didn't notice them before, and they're doing something amazing. Like there's all kinds of people that are like that.
That's especially funny because this is not a huge city, and yet it's big enough that there's like this stream of music, like out at it might just be at a place that you don't go to. They play at Starling Yard and at El Rocco a lot, and maybe you're just not there. So they have like tons of followers who are in this like narrow stream, and then we're in like a little parallel stream over there where we go to Sulphur Studio and Location Gallery and stuff. You know.
Well, I have a theory about there are certain times and places that are very special in life, and like Paris in the 20s, things like that, where I used to live, which I'm not going to mention.
Paris in the 20s?
No, the other place, the island.
But why don't you mention it?
Because I always talk about it.
Who cares?
But there was certain places and times where congregations of very creative people seem to gather for a time.
Yeah.
And
are you implying that everywhere you've ever lived has been
no?
a time
But
of
I'm
great
saying
creativity?
No,
Savannah.
Yeah, because I.
You're saying Key West then, Savannah now.
Because I should.
Right. That's
right.
right.
No, that's not
I
what
see
I'm
where
saying.
you're going.
No, but Savannah has definitely been a hub of creativity. I mean, the first time you came here, Tam. You came here because of SCAD.
I did.
Right.
And then I went to New York, and then I came back, just for Savannah.
Why?
I always thought I would end up here. I just felt at the time that I was a little young to like settle down here permanently. So I wanted to go to New York and try that and just be able to say I had lived in New York.
Life,
but I always intended to come back here.
Really?
Yeah.
See,
I just wanted to
you back here.
I wanted to get a little older and more beaten
to
down
use
by
an art
life.
phrase, it drew
More beaten down by life.
New York, and which New York successfully beat me down, and then I could come back to Savannah.
Right. So you could say, I've been there, buddy.
Yeah.
Now I'm dead inside, ready to return to Savannah.
We can be reborn.
I would love to,
But
I would love to talk more about that though, which you mentioned about Savannah being sort of special, because I do think that something happened, and that was Sulphur Studios. I think that Sulphur Studios happening and becoming a thing, and now it's Art Southeast, and there's like, and all these other things sprung up too.
Well, when did Sulphur start?
I think Sulphur is like 7 or 8 years old now. 8 years.
Okay.
So, kind of, I think we're 20, maybe even older than that now.
Right. I was thinking
maybe 10. Maybe 10. But that happened, and then Location Gallery kind of opened, and a lot of things
Thank
built
you,
up.
Peter, for everything you've done.
Everything that happened in the Starland District and stuff like that. But do you kind of feel like maybe we're moving, like, that we might have passed that
I
moment?
hope not. I'm clinging on to the vestige of the greatness.
Now, Art Southeast is fucking amazing.
No. But I'm talking about overall the town.
But we can talk about your recent series of articles about multiple galleries that have closed down that had all been open for 10, 15 years.
Cobo.
Ellis, Cobo, Savannah Art Association Gallery.
Yeah, Savannah Gallery.
Right.
Now, like, I mean, even half of the City Market galleries, Brian McGregor moving over, Lisa Rosenmeyer leaving,
that was
leaving.
That was management.
It's all part of pieces of the puzzle. And
even the Moon River closed, and a long time ago, I remember their upstairs was like an inexpensive place for young people to rent to have a show in their upstairs space.
I forgot about them. Yeah,
and there's definitely like a cost of living issue here now. Savannah used to be cheap.
Well, that's what I experienced in Key West.
Yeah, and so like, I wonder if we're coming to the end of it simply because it's hard for people to survive. Like, I mean, I saw it was a rental space. So there's the typical rental model is you have to make 1/40th of whatever the rent is 1/40th of your annual income. That's one of the calculus that they do. So like, if you make $40,000 a year, then technically you're qualified for $1,000 a month in rent, right?
Okay.
So I'm seeing like 1-bedroom apartments renting for $1,500, which would equate to $60,000 a year. Now, I'm not saying you can't have roommates or that artists don't figure stuff out, but when you start to see those kind of rent prices, how are artists surviving here? Like, whereas before it was cheap. And so you could kind of like...
Not only that,
you know...
They're not just that, but it's also the idea that there so many apartment buildings are going up instead of little homes where they used to be. So a family used to live there. Things like that. And now it's apartment buildings.
And they're not cheap apartments.
And so whoever owns the property is getting 50 times the amount of money they used to. And they will push that as much as they can. And I'm telling you, I saw that happening when I first got here. I thought, we're going to enjoy this as much as we can while we're here. Because I can see it's going to be popular. Once it gets popular, things start to change.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine, and because we saw this, I think, from the very beginning, when we first started doing Art on the Air, there were so few artists who were living off their art. There were very, very few. And then I kind of feel like it was rising, and there became quite a few. And there actually are now a decent amount of artists living off their art and just doing art for their career. But I wonder if that's going to start to head back downwards because in order to afford a $1,500 a month rent, you have to make $60,000 a year, and that's a high bar for an
artist. And that'll take you to some place that'll make you that type of money, which means you're not here anymore.
You're right.
And that's when it starts cutting into the creativity field, as we say. And I don't want to sound all mopey about it because I'm still clinging on to, I hope that it can last as long as it will.
Yeah, I mean, I feel really fortunate. I'm in Gallery 209, which is on River Street, and it's a co-op, and there's like 30 of us, and next year is going to be the 50-year anniversary of this gallery. We're in the 49th year. But yeah, it's super fortunate to be in this building where I guess we're on long enough lease that it hasn't affected us. Like there hasn't been any crazy rent jump.
Especially where that is, right?
Yeah, it's on River Street. So, and this place is open 7 days a week, and there's 30 people involved. And since it's been open for so long, all the rules are like very well established. So there's not, it's not chaotic. It's very stable. And yeah, so 7 days a week, it's like tourists coming through and buying things. And yeah, and then there's another similar place called Signature Gallery in City Market. That's another co-op. And so that's in City Market. So they're having people come through buying all the time. But to have like a lot of artists who can survive on their art, there needs to be many, many of these places that hold many artists in them, that have tourists coming through all the time, that you can actually sell things all the time. And it has been great. I guess more and more people are selling in Forsyth Park. It used to just be a few people there.
Oh, it's crazy now.
So that's awesome that you can get like a $5 or $10 permit for the year and sell in Forsyth Park. And that's a good way to still get all of that attention on your art and everything. But yeah, it's super disappointing that lately, just in the past months, these like long running major galleries have closed down. And it's very perturbing to me that I don't know who to contact, but that the tourism board, that like whoever is doing the intel for Savannah and all the media attention that we have that brings tourists here, that it just is pitched at like a place to come and play and drink, and not as an arts destination to come and buy art.
Tourism.
It's driving me crazy.
Byline though. That's the standard tourism thing.
Like when I lived in New York, like there's a lot of towns in Cape Cod that are just full of galleries, and literally they were known as a place, like super wealthy people from New York would pop up there for a day to go shop art and then go home, and they were known to people to do that. And like Atlanta somewhat, I think people fly from New York to like go to Atlanta to tour galleries and then go home again. And I don't know why it's never been a thing that Savannah isn't like in national publications or something as being like,
especially because of the largest art school, privately owned art school in the country.
Yeah, that's especially odd.
Well, there's no bond between SCAD and the rest of the city. There's an antagonistic relationship, I would say. I mean, I don't think that there's a friendly relationship between the locals and the university. I think it's like,
I always thought they did a fantastic job when they first started. I don't know that much
Agree.
Totally. I mean, when they fixed up everything and they started offering different classes for different mediums and different fields, and it brought a lot of people in, creatives in, kids, and otherwise. But I don't know what they're doing now, and I often wondered why they have such, like you say, an antagonistic.
They're super insulated, so they're not a part of our community in a way. Like it's,
right.
And so I think that you say that and we have this, but if there's not an integration between our art scene and SCAD. SCAD is its own thing.
Yeah, and like SCAD is like nationally and internationally renowned. So like Savannah is maybe known as a city to like send your kid or for the kid to come here to like get trained on art. Like it's known as a place to come do that, but there's not the corresponding like, and then also and then they stay here and they sell their art. There's not a corresponding like, and Savannah is also a destination to come and then buy that art.
Yeah. I think Art Southeast is doing a great job at, Sulphur is doing a great job at trying to change that, but I don't know if it's going to happen. I look at it.
Well, what can be done?
It would be like the PR people at either the city or the tourism board or the Chamber of Commerce or whatever that is that's like getting us these like paid marketing things in national magazines.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to be motivated in that regard, though. And there's no motivation. So it comes down to you.
So you, David.
You're the one responsible for this.
You're
I have no responsibility at all. It's down to you now. So you've got to do it and push this. But that's what I was saying about certain times and places in history that have that special vibe. Mm-hmm. And you're recognizing it, but there needs to be more.
Yeah.
There needs to be more from the city as well as SCAD, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
I wish SCAD had galleries. I think that they used to have more gallery spaces in town that would be for highlighting, like it might be for kind of larger artists a little further in their career, but definitely spaces where they would have shows of alumni work. And I always think it's interesting that they don't have any spaces in town specifically to show alumni who are working.
Why did you come here, Rob?
That's a good question. Why did I come?
Not today, not here. I know it was just the free coffee at Tam's, but.
So, we wanted to move back to the East Coast because all of our family was here and they were getting older. We were on the West Coast, in LA, and so my mom is in Myrtle Beach, so 4 hours away. My dad at the time was up in Northern Virginia. He ended up moving to Brevard, which is outside of Asheville. There was a desire to get back onto the East Coast, and we visited Savannah. We had visited Savannah before we moved to LA and loved it, but we came back and we were looking at cities to move to, and we just kind of fell in love with the city. It wasn't really about art or anything. It's just like
I hear that a lot from people. When I was doing the gallery up in City Market, I'd have people come in, and a lot of them had no idea why they came here. Mm-hmm. They just had a vibe. And they said they went through once, felt good, decided to come back and visit for a while.
Maybe I caught some of what you're talking about, though, because we moved here in 2011. And I feel like, because that was right after the housing, a couple of years after the housing market crash and everything like that. And it just felt like there was a lot of opportunity for people.
And reassessment.
Yeah, like here, what is this town going to be? Like we could decide, in a way. It felt that way.
There's opportunity.
Yeah.
There's creativity.
Yeah, and creativity, exactly. And it was not expensive to live here. Not really.
Up until literally right before COVID, it was still rents were really inexpensive.
Yeah.
I had a super inexpensive place near Kroger.
COVID changed everything in terms of the cost of living here.
Well,
it's insane.
Well,
it's been really fast.
That changed everything anyway. But no, that's interesting because, like I said, I've heard that a lot, that nobody can really define why they came here. I've heard that not from everybody, but a lot of people have said that.
So is there a way, the three of us, we're very smart people. We're at very least connected to the art scene. How do we recapture that spark? How do we ensure that it continues on? Because there's no doubt about it that there is a ton of talent
here. Well, like you said, there's hubs that have to instigate, that have to have that to develop, to let it develop. Mm-hmm. And Art Southeast is doing the best, I think, right now. Mm-hmm.
I guess I wish there were more overt groupings of people getting together to chip in on spaces together and work together and have places where they either rent their space to other people or they're showing their own work. I just feel like the power is in groups of people getting together because everybody just has a little bit of money and a little bit of time, but put together you can actually run a business.
Sometimes it's just magic. The Savannah Morning News, they have you to do this now.
And I do basically write 2 to 3 pieces every week to try to feature
So to
the
give
art.
them,
So-
I'll give them
lot,
credit
yeah.
that they have somebody on board.
Yeah,
that
for
will do
sure.
this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And they have Adriana, who I just interviewed. As well.
Adriana Boatwright.
Right.
And she's in Soy Como Soy, and so she's, you know, I think Soy Como Soy is doing awesome work in Savannah
They're
as well.
moving.
Yeah,
out
she's that
there.
in, too.
I'm curious about this event they're having next week.
I'm not involved in
Oh,
that,
yeah.
you know that?
The
I
art
know,
battle?
but I'm really curious about
Art
how that's
rumble.
going to work
Are you a
out.
judge?
I am a judge.
Ooh.
But this won't come out before then, so we shouldn't really talk about
This
it.
one, yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
I interviewed her in the last one, and it did come out in time for the battle, so that was exciting.
The battle's this Saturday, so...
Yeah.
Because I saw this video of 2 artists sketching on a wall, and they had a rope tied to their arms.
Yeah.
Did you see this? While
No, but-
while one's trying to draw, the other one's trying to draw as well.
Oh,
and
wow.
And they're fighting. And I was
Do you know they're giving us
this would be so
microphones?
perfect to use for that.
They're Clinton and I are
do
both
what?
hosts, and we both are going to have microphones. It's not going to be... It's a
Oh, you're just going to walk
Yeah.
around and talk?
We're the judges.
There's a third judge as well.
Yeah, there's a
right?
third judge.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I'm drawing a blank
I
on
think
her name.
it's somebody who's not in the arts, and Adriana was talking about this, and I was like, because they were like, yeah, 2 people in the art, and then another person, which is cool, like
is
just
great,
a whole different
yeah.
viewpoint. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can't believe they're giving us microphones. We're just like, I'm going to taunt these artists like the whole time.
Are you? Well,
and
you
it's
should.
really good
Are you
artists.
a
too.
trash talker?
Are they going to videotape?
Oh,
I
they
mean,
better.
whatever they call it nowadays, you kids nowadays.
Videotape. Roll back the tape.
Whatever they call it. Or they go to video
The
it.
Soy Como Soy people seem really good at social marketing. I'm sure that they're going to be out there getting close.
Yeah, Taffy LaPlante, shout out to her, man. She's awesome.
Yeah.
She does such a good job with them. And of course, AJ Perez is involved. I mean, there's so many good artists. Adolfo.
Sure.
Is going to be there. I think Fredo Martinez is he also in the Art Rumble as well?
Yeah.
Birkland, what's her Adrian Birkland? It's just such a good group.
That's cool. I talked to her before.
Yeah, there's just it's
David and I
amazing.
once interviewed Adrian, and we sat in some random little park nearby, and so that one probably has the sound of birdsong in the
Oh,
background.
that was
a sweet little one.
interesting. But yeah, I like. As a matter of fact, I'm looking forward to this because I'm actually might go to this event
Come, dude, it'd be awesome, man.
because there's.
I'll let you
enough-
hold the mic for 5
Because
minutes.
instead of just true,
Wow.
but instead of just people, it seems like there's action involved and there's some sort of a spirit there. Instead of just people standing around in an art show. I mean, as you know personally, I'm terrible at showing up at events because even my own, I have.
You don't show up to your own receptions?
I have actually walked into a reception with my work and said hi and walked back out because there was people there and it just the vibe.
You know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of openings. An opening is a celebration. It's not a time to look at art, and I just like to look at art.
Yeah.
You know.
That's why I usually show up later.
Yeah,
I
like
feel the same. I'll come during the day just at a different time.
I go to virtually every show, but I don't like to go during the opening.
I
all the
became
time.
like during COVID. It's like post-COVID. I became like this too. Where I don't enjoy going to the just all the people around, and you can't actually get to the art, and you kind of are having the same conversation over and over again, and I find it a little stressful.
And I'm sure there's a bit of this for you too, is you get to know so many people that it's you have no opportunity really to engage with the artwork. You're just going to talk to 1,000 people,
Yes,
which is
yes.
great. I like all them.
We all are introverts, so.
Rob, not so much.
No, I am an introvert. It's an act.
We're just
It really
we're
is.
social introverts.
You've got it down really well.
I read books.
because-
I'm not even kidding.
Well, the introvert thing, this is a misconception. It doesn't mean that you're like shy or not that great socially or not that great at talking to people. It just means that it takes a lot out of you. And I'm good with people one-on-one or in a
True.
small group, but in a big group like that, or having a bunch of conversations over and over again, or talking to a bunch of people who you don't know super well, so you're not having super deep conversations, it just wears you out. That's
True.
it.
So
Yeah.
I've had to go and just have my quiet time later.
Yeah.
To recharge.
Because I don't think, I
Mentally
think
recharge.
for some reason introversion has this like viewpoint in society that means you're like huddled in a corner like eating your own hair and you like can't handle talking to people. It's not that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is like...
What's wrong with sitting in a corner and eating?
I mean, I
your
know
own
that's
hair?
what you're going to do after
Okay.
this.
Socialization is a trained act to me. Like, it's something that I practice. It's not like a natural feature. It's just like, I mean, it from you do the radio show, and same thing with you. You said at the very, very beginning how it kind of pulled you out of your shell.
True.
Like, you have to talk to people. We were live on the radio.
True.
So, like, you can't just sit there in silence.
And you might have to talk to these people and ask them what they do and because I would be interested in them.
Exactly.
That's not so
And you
bad.
have to, like, banter, right?
Yeah.
Like on the spot. You're a little bit like a stand-up comedian.
Well, you leave it up
You're-
open for conversation.
I always loved it. I thought the best that David and I ever did was when we would have guests on that didn't talk. Because David and I would have to...
Then we
were heroes.
Get on their case.
Yeah.
And we would have to... We'd be like...
Filling an hour.
Just like randomly talking. And I thought sometimes we pulled it off in a really good way.
Sometimes.
Would you end up doing that
Most
thing
times.
where you ask a question, but it's a huge background where you talk like a huge paragraph of your observations about their art and then be like, would you find that to be true for you? And then the person would be like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to move on and like do that again.
We'd be like, well, what was your inspiration? Well, I just kind of painted what came to me.
Know.
And then you're like, okay, well, give us a little more. Just give us a little more.
Yeah.
How did that come to you?
Please say something.
And how did your childhood affect this? That's why I came up with the artist studio.
Yeah, do you want to ask us a few
Those
art studio
artists. Yeah, do you want to do
questions?
some artist studio
I've
questions?
got some with me. I
Let's
happen to have.
Should we ask all of us? We
Sure,
can all
once you have
answer
them
these,
pulled
right?
up.
Who are you and how did you get in here is always my favorite.
I live in this house.
I drove over here. I've got an interview today with...
David barely made it.
I barely made it.
Did you bike or did you drive?
No, I drove right away.
You still got that truck?
Yes.
Of course you do.
Yeah. I love that truck.
Yeah,
David, when
man.
I see you riding around town on your souped up red bicycle, I always thought of Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
I wished I would have rethought about that before I bought that bike. Everybody thinks it's Pee-wee's. I did not think about that.
But that's cool, though. That's not
I
a
know
negative.
it's okay. It's
Yeah.
nice, but
It's very nostalgic.
But
Everyone of my generation.
But listen, that's not the only thing. I get that. I also get, hey, there's Tommy Chong.
Yeah, get that. That's fair.
Like I've got blonde hair, but okay. Or Willie Nelson.
Yeah, the bandana and...
You're definitely
And
Willie
somebody
Nelson.
the other day, one of the guys at Kroger's stopped me, who was working there, and he was telling me I looked just like some guy on some video game that I have no idea what he's talking about. But apparently I'm a
It's
video
like Grand
game
Theft
guy.
Auto or
That
something
guy
like
on that game.
It may be Grand Theft Auto. I don't know. I'm not a big video game player guy, so I have no idea.
Maybe
So it's
someone
weird
can
that now-
someone can get back to us after the show and who's
No,
good on video
that's-
games
that-
and say
I'm not
who-
sure if anybody's listening
who
this
you
long.
think,
but
David?
we'll
No,
continue.
you can let that go.
Listen, my mom will listen.
Let's have an
I'll listen.
artist studio question is, what's a memorable response to your work? Now, I'll ask you, Rob.
Oh my God! So this is a good question right now. Okay, so I recently wrote this gallery tour, art tour.
Yeah.
Never have I ever gotten so much criticism, including from you. Not
Oh,
really
that's good.
criticism.
Yeah.
I
gave
so
you a
many
note.
people
I gave a suggestion.
were upset.
That's good.
That I did
That
not
means they-
include their gallery or talk about them.
In an era of, for weeks, your articles have been about galleries that are closing. In an era of that, it's like, yeah, we want to bring attention to the galleries that are left.
Yeah, well, I did miss a couple. There's no doubt about it. But there's also this, like, there was a notion that, I mean, like, I have a word limit. Like, I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, I had to make choices, and that was just the facts of it. But yeah, man, I had one, and I won't name the person, but I had one person from one gallery just ripping me in my comments for the article that I posted up for not covering the gallery that they're a part of. I mean, just hitting me hard.
They took it personally?
And I was like, look, I think this gallery has great work. You're a great artist. It's nothing personal. I featured 17 galleries in this article. Like, there was there's 100 galleries in Savannah and 1,000 artists. Like, what do you want? Like, you can't do it. And so that was I was definitely feeling...
And did you feel like maybe you should come back and take care of that problem, or just move on?
You mean like...
No. No, I don't mean self-inflicted harm. No, I mean, add on, the part 2.
Yeah.
Well, so the gallery, we're going to expand on the gallery guide. So, Tamara brought Gallery 209 to my attention. That's right. I do think that it should be in the gallery guide. So I'm going to add that.
It's about to be 50 years old.
Now, actually, so
imagine making it that long selling art.
I want to actually write about the 50-year anniversary.
Great.
That would be a good story.
That's a great story.
Perfect. Yeah.
And I will say I've tangentially written about Gallery 209 a bunch of times because I'll write about an artist that's there and then I'll mention that they're in that space. But there are ones that I want to add. But David, it's just the same thing we talked about earlier, and I know it's the same thing with you, Tamara. You can't fake it. You are drawn to what you're drawn to. We're human beings with opinions.
Right.
I'm just an opinion. I just have an opinion. I'm not saying
You're
this
not
is good
AI.
art and this is bad art. It's not. If I don't write about something, it's not that I'm saying it's bad art. I'm saying this is not what I am into. I can't pretend. I can't write an article and pretend that I like the shit I'm looking at. Like, I have to like it, like, legitimately. I told somebody that this week. Somebody invited me to a show, and I said, yeah, I'll come and check it out, but I can't make any promise. I have to see the work. I can't pretend like I'm into it.
I'm sorry. This just reminds me of one of our interviews we had with, because it was near the end of my tenure. And I showed up not even knowing who we were going to talk to that time.
Okay.
Won't mention names.
Just killing it as a co-host.
That's right. And, but I walked in, and about 12 minutes into talking to the guest, I realized I'd walked into his show months before where he had a different show. And I did not understand a bit of it. It was so weird. And just to me, it's hard to say this without saying who it was, but I don't think he'd mind.
Well, say him.
I don't remember the name.
Jesus Christ.
But that's not the point.
It's easy to say it then without saying the name because you don't remember who they are.
Well, okay, it was Professor at SCAD, and Scottish fellow.
English. He's not Scottish. It's he's a great artist.
He's a great artist.
Henry Dean.
Henry Dean.
Yeah. I love Henry Dean's work.
I know, but when I first walked into his work, I was doing this ambassador thing for Art Walk, and I was at that gallery, and I walked in, and the canvases were on the walls, and it looked like it looked like they had been thrown into the marsh and left for a few months, and then dragged out and put on the wall and that was it.
Yeah.
And it just was like, I just did not get it. I could get it as a joke, but not as a full-fledged gallery showing. And people were talking about how...
Was there not like a statement anywhere to read?
There was no statements, really. And everybody was saying how insightful this was. And it was like, it's a bunch of dirty canvases they put on the wall. But then when I started talking to him,
He's so brilliant, dude. He's such a smart guy.
I'm sure it's a huge conceptual
it
thing.
changed my mind.
In that very show.
But not for that show, but it changed my mind about him.
Well, do you remember in that show there was a video piece? There was a video piece, and it was chronicling a painting of his in the marsh during the eclipse.
I don't recall that at all.
And, well, because he didn't have a statement, you had to sit there and know. Oh. And so... that led to the eclipse thing he just did, where he put these sculptures all along the U.S. Line of totality.
David, I see by your surprise face you did not listen to my recent interview with him.
Or nor did you read my article about it.
Oh my gosh.
I did. They were both fascinating.
So I think what you're talking about is like the first eclipse that was in 2017-ish, and then the recent one, he since we knew it was happening, he'd planned for 2 years. He had a huge project dedicated to that eclipse that was a couple months ago.
Incredible, too.
So I just interviewed him about it. Shout out to that interview. That was a good one.
I appreciate
go back and listen to it. I honestly would really recommend listening to it.
He worked on that he planned that for 2 years, that project.
Right. And Henry is a very smart man, too. So
great.
like, the way he talks about his work, the way he thinks about it, and he's curious, too. So, like...
That's the best part.
Yeah, he has his ideas, but when you're talking to him, he'll be like, oh, well, now that's interesting. Yeah. I hadn't thought of that. And, like... he'll go down other paths.
Yeah, he made me feel very good. He was very complimentary.
Yeah, he's a really good.
He makes you feel good
open
talking to
for
him.
inspiration.
Yeah.
And for suggestions, which a lot of artists are. I don't know. They don't seem to be.
He was lovely. Everyone look up Henry Dean.
Yeah, but the point, of course, is that you can't pretend to be into what you're not into. It's not, and it's not a personal thing. Like, I rarely think this is garbage. There is one artist in town who I think's work is garbage. I wonder if you can think if you know who it is. I can say this is quality work. I can understand where they're coming from, but it's just not for me. And then I can't then go and write an article and say, hey, everybody should go check this out. Here's what I think I'm seeing here. Because it's not genuine. You have to be genuine. If you're not genuine, people will know.
Or it's like you're writing a paid advertisement, like those inserts in the middle of magazines. Yeah,
exactly. So what's next on the question list?
Oh yeah.
Not whom, but what have been your inspirations, and when?
I like, in school I kind of really got into, this is a whom, but Edward Gorey, and he has this specific thing where he does this it's like a magnifying glass, like say there's a picture and there's an item far away, and then he does this little like in the picture there'll be a circle and then sort of like a beam going back to the little detailed thing, and so then the blown up circle is like details of the thing that you're looking at, so it's sort of like it's like breaking the wall a little bit where the picture also has a little detailed shot within the picture. And I love that a lot. And particularly in SCAD, I was getting into doing sort of botanical drawings, and I was incorporating this like magnifying glass look into it. And I'm going to start getting back into that as well.
I like Gorey as well. And you have an Edward Gorey puzzle.
I have a puzzle,
I saw that. We're at,
it's so hard. It's black and white. And so it's
1,000 pieces too.
Yeah.
What about you, David? Have you ever answered this question?
No, I haven't. No, my next question.
Wait a second. No, you got to answer. I'll answer it too, but you got to answer.
Wait, what was the question again? Not
what
whom,
inspired you?
What inspired me?
Yeah. Mine was the magnifying glass technique.
There's so many. There's so many inspirations from so many fields. It could be music. It could be architecture. It could be anything that would make it into. Okay, for right now, I just got a commission to do 3 hummingbirds, for instance.
Okay.
And
small commission?
Yes, 3 actually.
Small.
3 actually.
But are your mini paintings?
They want the mini paintings, 3 by 3 inch.
Nice.
Each one, but the inspiration for that is not so much the hummingbird; it's the narrative behind the story of the hummingbirds. Mm-hmm. Instead of just showing a bird, there's got to be something how they're interacting and something that they're doing, and maybe a slice of a story.
It's hard to fit into a mini painting.
Not for me.
Okay.
But that's.
Are these your spirit locon? What is it?
The spirit animals?
Is this what a spirit? Are these spirit animals?
No, these are well, they all are.
Yeah, I know, but it's not that style.
But no, not in that style. I haven't done that for about a year.
I have to give a shout out. So David surprised me.
Oh,
you didn't even tell me this was coming.
Oh,
he surprised me with a painting of my dog who passed away. I guess it was
that's a nice.
I recognize it as a.
You're good at animals, dude. You really are.
I recognize right away. I recognize one of the photos that I had posted online.
Lovely face, and look at the ears. I mean, for God's sake.
The ear, his eyes were like a little bit doopy looking, and you got
goofy.
that. You got his hound ears. You got his like thick neck. His neck.
When people say one, and when they say 1 by 1, I mean one. They say small. This is like a 1.5 inch by 1.
It's 2 by 2.
2 by 2.
That is not 2 inches by 2 inches.
Yes, it is.
But he's surprised me.
I bet you if we measured this would not be 2
It
inches.
might be a little hair below 2, but it is 2.
But
that's how they sell it.
I really appreciate that surprise.
That's very nice.
He sits on my mantle and stares at me like he did.
Well, I didn't like. You know what? I did. I started doing pet portraits. I don't want to get into all this, but because my dog passed away. And I loved my dog.
Yeah.
And I had this noble picture of him where he was, just looking up and dignified. And to get that shot, I had to hold a piece of chicken off to the side so he would be very still and very quiet and noble. But that doesn't translate into the painting itself. But then...
that would be great, though, if you had a second painting of you holding a piece of chicken.
Yeah. I like that.
I feel like I do pet portraits, too. and quite a few of them are either one person commissioning about their own dog that passed, or is it? I've had a few where it's a surprise for someone else, like somebody buying a pet portrait for their friend whose pet passed away, and it's super meaningful.
Well, it is meaningful. That's why I mean, when mine passed away, I've had some great animals, and the only one I haven't painted. No, actually, I did paint Angus, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But
I'll post a photo of this painting with our show notes.
Yeah, you should.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But since then, I've done pet portraits, and I've given some, like, to you as a gift, because I know how much that means to them. It's not just a picture of their dog. It's a picture of the time and I'm involved with them.
One thing that's nice, also I've always felt like this about pets, is that I feel like one aspect of grieving for your pet, it's hard, is that like when a person dies, and there's a lot of people who can come together and share stories, but when your pet passes away, it's not necessarily tons of people who knew that pet really well. It's just the people who lived in the house with you, or if friends came around and knew your pet really well. But it's a little bit like this private grief thing.
No, you've had a deep connection.
Yeah, but so in a way, and I'm actually just thinking about this, like, as you were just talking about this, but like the fact that now I know that you had to sit there and for how many hours you had to stare at my dog's photo and paint him is touching to be like somebody else was real focused on him and got to know him and got to know the details. Like, that's a touching thing to think just in your grieving. It's like,
no, it's true
that we shared like an appreciation for how cute and
that's why I do
doopy
them,
he was.
And it's not often, but certain people, I just feel inclined. Hey, it'd be nice they would like this, so I'll do it.
I did like it. Thank you.
So there you go.
I'll answer the question.
I was going to say, please.
I have like got this quote, and I don't know who said the quote, but it's, every person you'll ever meet knows something that you don't.
Yeah.
And that quote, it drives me. Like, I think about it all the time. Like, every person you'll ever meet knows something you don't. And like,
I like that.
So when I interview people, I'm like, what is it that you know that I don't know?
Yeah.
And I think that's a really, it's a drive for me, like as a human. So.
Well, that takes care of the other question I was going to ask. What great piece of advice you've received, and that's one.
I didn't receive
that
advice.
too.
I just found that.
Yeah.
You received it somehow, or you wouldn't have.
Let me. Here's a piece of advice.
Okay, here we're going for some answers.
I'll get you some good advice.
Okay, here we go.
It's better to be a smartass than a dumbass.
Is that a David line?
It's better to be a smartass than a dumbass.
That's the one I hear a lot.
My dad used to say that all the time.
Yeah.
It's better to be a smartass than a dumbass. I actually like that quote a lot.
It is a good quote.
That's a good piece
I
of
got
advice.
good advice when I was in my early 20s, and I just was in a series of office jobs that were not what I wanted to do. And there was a really nice man in one of my jobs who was a creative director type guy, and he like took me out for a drink one night and was like, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "Well, I want to be an artist." And he just said, "You have to get used to peanut butter. Like, you have to get, if you want to like live a life where you're maybe not going to be making a lot of money for a very long time." They were like, it's just like, you have to commit to, you're going to have to like adjust your expectations, and you're going to have to live a life that will like allow you to do something like that. You have to get, like, you might have years where you're living on the equivalent of peanut butter.
You have to get used to peanut butter. What a great quote.
And I always remember, it was like from my early 20s, and yeah, there was a really long period where you live in like a very small way, and you don't have a lot of money, you don't have a lot of spare money, but that I got through that, and then now I actually like can pay my bills and eat more than peanut butter.
Now you can get jelly as well.
What? And the good shit, like the organic jelly, Crofters.
The clover blossom.
What about you? What's a great piece of advice that you've gotten?
I'm looking for the next great piece of advice. Yes, that's the answer. How's that?
That's why you posed this question?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm hoping you guys would know. That's right. Do you have anything?
Can you help me, please? Therapy. That's the advice. All right, what do we got next?
Don't wear your hat inside.
We'll do one more.
One more?
All right.
Well, here's a pretty good one. Actually, here, can I do two and just real quick? Describe color.
All right, we'll be quick.
Describe color.
Ugh.
Okay, see, that's why I didn't want that to be a question, because that puts you two off. That's so much.
Visual emotion.
Involved.
Visual emotion. That's what color is for me.
That's
good.
Well, there was a great line I always loved, that art decorates space and music decorates time.
I've heard that before. That's a great quote. There's a good quote.
There's a good quote.
You heard it from me.
You answered your earlier question.
David Laughlin. I'll quote that.
That's right.
Good quotes.
Are there particular jobs you've had which may have contributed to your approach and or execution of your work? Say for the office job, you had patience.
I've got some. So
Okay.
I worked a lot of shitty jobs. I worked retail. I worked grocery store. Worked at.
Sure.
The thing that all those is that I learned in all those jobs is hard work. It's like, doesn't matter if you're working in a creative job. I've always looked at working in creative job as a blue collar thing. I go to work and I work. It's not like, I mean, it's something I love and it's creative and it's from an inspiration, but it's still like, I think of it like a job, you know?
Yeah.
I think that, and I learned that from working 9 to 5 and like, because when you work at a company and you're working 9 to 5, you have tasks. Like, you do shit the whole day.
Well, and you have to
know
show
what I
up
mean?
at 9 for one thing, and you have to leave at 5.
And you do the work the whole day. You keep moving. Like, being an artist or a writer or a musician or whatever it doesn't have to be 9 to 5, but it's not just sitting around waiting for the inspiration to hit and then like blah and then like you make money. You know, it's it's a grind too.
I've heard from a lot of artists who have a set time, and a lot of them are really early in the mornings, as a matter of fact, where it doesn't have to be the whole day, but there's a set time where they feel that they can go in and start creating and working. And probably because it's early in the morning, it's when no one is around to stop them or bother them.
Yeah.
But they show up and wait for, or not wait, they just start working and make it work. And whether it does or not, at least they showed up and did it.
Yeah, I have a little tangential answer to this, but
Sure.
recently there was a really beloved, popular business in town that closed down, and I went to go buy something in their last days to support them, and I hadn't been in forever. And when it was my turn and I was checking out, I asked a question, and I guess it was a stupid question or something that she'd been asked a lot, and she answered back in such a like snide, bitchy way, and it was such a terrible experience. And I realized that when I'm at City Market and people ask me things that annoy me and I sometimes answer back in a crispy way, I realized that I really need to cut that out, and I need to like be much kinder to people face to face, because I will just remember what a terrible experience that was on the other end of that, and so I don't want to give that experience to people too.
Well, you're really...
That's a really good point.
You're really out in the open there at City Market.
Yeah.
Though.
And I do tend to, especially as I'm old, I think women say this, as you're older, you have like quote unquote no fucks to give. So I'm not good with a poker face. And if I'm annoyed, I'm pretty like clearly like, ugh, over it. But I'm really trying to like give people grace and not answer in a way that shows that I'm really over it, because it was crappy to be on the receiving end of that.
Yeah.
So I learned a good lesson.
Yeah, and they don't know that they're the 15th person to ask the question. Like,
yeah.
Where's the bathroom? Can I have the bathroom key?
Or did you use a stencil for this painting? That was actually asked me.
Yeah.
How did you do? What kind of kit did you use to do that? Like, really? Okay.
You didn't tell them, right?
I told him to get the hell out of the studio.
Get the hell out of my studio.
Why? How dare you? But being up there was,
Yeah.
different.
People want to,
sometimes
they ask a lot of questions. Sometimes they're trying to delve, like they want to do it on their own. They're trying to like gather information for you. Like I'm sitting there as like a person to give out them information to do it themselves. And I just feel like people should reward me by spending $4 on a greeting card.
Fair enough.
I agree. That's fair.
That's all I'm saying.
Well, I mean, I get complaints like, "Oh, your article's behind a paywall," and I'm like, "Well, how the fuck do you think I got paid for this job?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you want to read it, then subscribe for the $1 a month it is for 6 months, so that way you can read my article.
So maybe a lot of our complaints are about being annoyed of like people wanting your art and your labor for free. Yeah, that is an annoyance. Yeah,
it's
I feel annoyed.
exposure. You get exposure.
So that's
in my
the
living
thing
room.
that I feel annoyed at. Yeah.
I'll tell you, one of the weirdest ones was at a show of one of my with my work, one that I showed up for, and somebody was asking me about where I went to school.
Should have lied. Harvard.
I should have lied because the reaction was strange, and I said, "Well, wherever I learned wherever I can." He says, "No, where did you get your art education from?" Like, well, I graduated high school. So there's that.
Yeah.
You should just lie. Just say you're like from some really prestigious school.
And after that, it was like...
Well, I trained traditionally at Oxford,
Yes.
As part of a Rhodes
Yes, of course.
Scholarship.
But no, when they
And then I spent 6 years working at the Louvre.
Yeah, on a boat. but then when they finally got down that I did not go to an accredited art school or anything like that, they literally stopped talking, turned around, walked away.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, wait, what? Why does this seem to be important?
Yeah.
But okay, you seem
That
to
was
like the
that
word.
was their line in the sand. They needed that.
Apparently, that's a big thing. So with some people, so okay, that's fine.
And you've been doing commercial work for like your
Most
whole
of my
life.
life, yeah.
So like you have your fine art part of it, but you also do commercial work, and so like you're interacting with clients and making sales essentially like all the time.
And doing what they want a
Uh-huh.
lot, which is interesting sometimes. But sometimes they let me have fun. So it's a different aspect. It's a whole different field. Like when we did the museum.
Prohibition Museum, you mean?
Yeah, I've been with those guys for decades.
Yeah.
So-
Did you do the murals inside?
Everyone.
Okay, guys, go to the Prohibition Museum. I went recently when relatives came to town, and it is amazing.
It's
inside.
great.
There's
It
so
is.
many details, so
we
many things to
can't.
look
That's
at.
the thing. We'd sit
Did a
around
nice
and
job.
come up
Tons
with
of
all the
paintings
ideas.
inside.
And
That's
stuff.
very cool.
But when we first walked in, it was funny because my first instructions were, "Hey, there's a wall. Go do something."
That's great.
Because we already knew what we were doing.
Yeah.
I
Guys,
do wanna
we
know.
have kind of gone on.
Yeah,
a
we
bit.
should probably move on. We should probably be done.
We should wrap it up.
Tamara, thank you for having us on the show. This is great.
I'm so happy you were into it.
Thank you for doing the show.
Oh.
Yes, really.
Yeah.
Seriously. Let's give Tamara a round of
Oh my God.
applause. 2 years.
Thank you.
That really is impressive. I mean, this is free. We do this to make the community a better.
It's a community service. I
It
think
really
that
is.
I'm
It's
doing
good.
an archival time capsule of creatives in Savannah.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, because this show now has been on for what, like almost 7
When
years.
you wrote me and you were handing off, you said you'd done it for 5 years. So
Yeah, I think we started in 2017. 2017, 2018?
Okay.
Well, thank you for choosing me as your one person to hand it off to. I still am confused and baffled why you would do that, but
Doesn't
grateful.
matter because you pulled it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you
You've
pulled
done
it
a
off.
great job.
For all I know, you sent the same message to 20 people.
Don't
You're the
tell
only one I
her.
thought of.
No, so I will say that after David left, I did consider bringing on another host, and I did try out a few people.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to do it with Leslie Lovell, I will say.
Oh, yeah,
I wanted
she
to
would
do
be
it with
great.
Leslie Lovell. I thought she would have been really good.
Yeah.
But we didn't vibe awesome. But I felt like when you came on the
Interesting.
show,
Michael.
like
The
we
way
vibed
vibed,
awesome
yeah.
vibe.
I think Michael was considered.
Mahaffey.
Right.
Well,
Thank-
maybe we both are sort of bantery kind of people, so maybe you just thought that would be a thing I could bring to
you're a
it.
better fit. You're a better fit. He would have alienated half of his audience by enough.
I mean, I love him. I mean, he's a
No,
we
that's
all- I
true.
own several of his
You got to be
pieces.
honest. That's true.
Yeah, he would have gotten.
He would have done half the show and told him to get the hell
Yeah.
out. But,
My goal at the beginning, as
He's very
as stated
honest,
publicly, was
which is
I
good.
was endeavoring not to drive the show directly into the ground.
Congratulations.
So I've not done that. It's been 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to put this
Yeah.
a bow on it. I mean, I really do think you've done a great job, and I love that you've put your own twist on it. I mean, that's
Thank you.
I hope that you feel supported, and that once you took the show over, it's always been my philosophy and David's too. Like, it's your show.
Yeah,
You know? I mean,
appreciate
so
that. Thank you. And David, you should listen to the recent interview with Henry Dean because it was
I will.
badass.
everybody should.
Thank you everyone for listening, and follow us on Facebook at Arts on the Air. And this has been me, Tamara Garvey,
Rob Hessler.
David Laughlin.
for our 3-way chat on our 2-year
There we go.
anniversary. Thank you everyone for being a friend. Thanks for listening.
And be arty.